Welcome back to Why We Nurse. I'm your host, Serena Tobar, and I'm so excited to welcome you to season 4. Every season of this podcast has explored the many faces of nursing. We've talked about leadership, we've talked about resilience, we've talked about innovation, advocacy, professional growth, and purpose. But today, we're starting this season with a conversation that feels deeply important. A conversation about the mental health of nurses, about anxiety, about depression, about the pressure we feel to keep showing up even when we're struggling. Because if we're going to talk honestly about nursing, we can't only talk about the highlights. We have to talk about the weight that we carry too. Nursing is a profession built on caring for others. But somewhere along the way, many of us learned that caring for ourselves was optional. We learned to push through, to keep going, to smile, to perform, to function, and to appear capable, even when we felt completely exhausted inside. The truth is that nurses experience anxiety, nurses experience depression, nurses experience burnout, nurses experience grief, nurses experience trauma. And yet many of us suffer silently because we fear what will happen if we admit it. Perhaps we'll be judged. Perhaps we'll be seen as weak. Perhaps we'll be viewed as less capable. So we continue doing what nurses do best. We take care of everyone around us while quietly neglecting ourselves. And eventually that comes at a cost. There is a unique pressure that comes with nursing. Patients need us. Families depend on us. Coworkers rely on us. The healthcare system often expects us to always be strong. And somewhere in that expectation, many nurses begin to believe that they cannot have needs of their own. We've normalized phrases like, fine, just tired, everyone feels this way, I can handle it. Sometimes we become so skilled at functioning that no one realizes we're struggling. Sometimes even we don't realize how much we're carrying. So here's where I'll tell you a little bit about what's been going on in my life personally. And the reason that I haven't been as consistent with my podcast as I would like to be. Because I've been suffering. Over the last 2 years, I have lost both of my parents. And it has really changed our family dynamic quite a bit. It's changed how we view celebrations. It's changed how we communicate with one another. It's changed everything. And in some ways in a good way, some ways in a bad way. But there's so many times when I just want to talk to my mom or my dad, and I can't. Neither one of them are there anymore. And I find myself showing up, find myself caring for others, and not putting anything back into my own cup. And it's been exhausting. So I did take some time for myself, for my own opportunity to grieve, for my own opportunity to refill my cup. And I'm ready now. I'm ready to show up. I'm ready to complete my tasks. I'm ready to comfort families and support coworkers and advocate for patients. And nurses often do this every single day while carrying stories, emotions, and stress that no one else sees. So out there, the world praises nurses for our ability to keep going. But rarely does the world ask what that constant expectation is costing us. There's also another part of this conversation we need to address, because anxiety and depression do not happen in a vacuum. Sometimes they develop because what our nurses are carrying, and sometimes what we're carrying isn't just patient care, it's each other. Bullying, incivility, lateral violence, workplace exclusion, comments, eye rolls, gossip, public criticism, the feeling that you constantly have to prove yourselves. Many nurses have experienced some form of workplace incivility during their careers. And while these behaviors may seem small in isolation, their impact is anything but small. A dismissive comment, being ignored when asking for help, feeling unwelcome on a unit, being talked about instead of talked to, repeated criticism without support. Over time, all these experiences accumulate. And here's what makes it especially painful. Many nurses enter healthcare because we want to help people. We expect healthcare to be a place of healing. So when the hurt comes from colleagues, it cuts differently. It creates self-doubt and it erodes confidence. It makes people question whether they belong. And for nurses already struggling with anxiety, stress, burnout, or depression, these experiences can intensify what they're already feeling. I've heard nurses say, I stopped asking questions because I was afraid of looking stupid. I felt alone every shift. I loved nursing, but I hated where I worked. I dreaded walking into the building every day. Those aren't just workplace problems. Those are mental health concerns, and we cannot ignore them. And we can't talk about supporting nurses without talking about culture. A wellness initiative cannot fix a toxic work environment. A self-care workshop cannot replace psychological safety. Resilience training cannot be the only answer to cultures that tolerate bullying. The responsibility cannot rest solely on the nurse experiencing the harm. It belongs to leaders, it belongs to organizations, and honestly, it belongs to all of us because every interaction contributes to the culture we create. Imagine how different nursing could feel if we became intentional about encouraging one another. If we experienced nurses remembered what it felt like to be new. If questions were welcomed instead of criticized. If feedback came with support instead of shame. If we chose mentorship over hierarchy. The profession is hard enough. We don't need to make it harder for one another. And when we combine workplace stress, emotional labor, staffing challenges, and sometimes unhealthy cultures, it is no surprise that anxiety and depression continue to affect so many nurses. Yet, despite that reality, many still feel afraid to talk about it. Which brings us to another challenge, the stigma. One of the biggest barriers nurses face isn't anxiety or depression itself. It's the fear of being honest about it. Many nurses worry that asking for help will make them appear weak. Some fear being judged, others feel professional consequences. And still others convince themselves their struggles aren't serious enough to deserve support. But here's what I want to say clearly. Mental health challenges are not a character flaw. They are not a lack of resilience. They are not evidence that you're a bad nurse. They are human experiences, and nurses are human. We would never tell a patient with diabetes to simply try harder. We would never tell a patient with hypertension to just be stronger. Yet many nurses say those exact things to themselves when it comes to mental health. We expect ourselves to function flawlessly under extraordinary circumstances. And then we feel guilty when we can't. It's time to challenge that narrative because seeking support isn't weakness, it's wisdom. So what do we do? How do we respond as a profession? How do we support nurses differently? First, we normalize conversation. Mental health should be discussed as openly as physical health. Second, leaders must create environments where people feel safe speaking up. Psychological safety is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Third, we stop celebrating exhaustion. Being overworked is not a badge of honor. Skipping meals is not resilience. Running on empty is not professional excellence. And fourth, we create cultures of genuine support. Cultures where people can say, I'm struggling, I'm overwhelmed, I need help, without the fear of judgment. We also need to recognize that support looks different for different people. Sometimes support is counseling. Sometimes support is peer support. Sometimes it's adjusting workloads. Sometimes it's taking time off. And sometimes it's simply having someone look at you and say, I see you, I hear you, you're not alone. As nurses, we offer compassion every day. It's time we extend some of that compassion to ourselves and to one another. So before we close today, I want to speak directly to the nurse listening who may be struggling. The nurse who feels anxious before every shift. The nurse who cries in the car after work. The nurse who can't turn their brain off when they get home. The nurse who feels exhausted even after sleep. The nurse who feels disconnected from the profession they once loved. The nurse who feels like everyone else has it together except them. I want you to hear this. You are not failing. You are not weak. You are not broken, and you are not alone. Your worth is not determined by your productivity. Your value is not measured by how much suffering you can tolerate. And your need for support does not make you less than a nurse. It makes you human. As we begin season 4 of Why We Nurse, my hope is that we continue to have conversations that are honest, courageous, and compassionate. Because nursing is more than just a profession. It's a community, and communities take care of each other. If we're serious about improving nurse well-being, we have to go beyond self-care. We have to build healthier cultures. We have to address bullying and incivility. We have to create environments where nurses feel psychologically safe, where asking for help is normalized, where kindness is expected, and where mental health is treated the same compassion that we offer our patients every single day. Because strength is not suffering in silence. Strength is having the courage to speak. Thank you for being here. Thank you for starting season 4 with me. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with a fellow nurse. Follow at Why We Nurse on Instagram and Facebook for updates and conversations that matter. Until next time, be gentle with yourself, care for your own heart, and remember why you nurse.